Think about a movement you probably perform without giving it much thought. Getting down onto the floor and standing back up. It sounds simple, but hidden inside that one movement is a remarkable test of how well your body works as a complete system. To rise from the floor, your legs have to produce enough force to lift your body. Your hips must contribute power. Your abdominal and back muscles have to stabilize your trunk. Your ankles and knees need enough mobility to let you position yourself correctly. At the same time, your brain has to coordinate balance, timing, and movement. You are not simply using your legs. You are asking several parts of your body to cooperate. This is why getting off the floor can tell you something that a simple muscle measurement may not. Imagine two people who can both straighten their knee against resistance. Their isolated leg strength might look similar, but when one person sits on the floor and stands without using their hands while the other struggles, you immediately see a difference in functional ability. Real life rarely asks your muscles to work in isolation. Real life asks them to work together. And that distinction becomes increasingly important with age. Muscle aging is not only about losing muscle size. Strength, power, balance, coordination, and mobility can also change. If you regularly practice movements that challenge these qualities, you give your body a reason to maintain them. But if you gradually eliminate difficult movements, your body adapts to the easier demands. That is the basic principle. The body becomes good at what you repeatedly ask it to do. If your daily life consists mostly of sitting in chairs, standing from high surfaces, walking short distances, and avoiding low positions, you may eventually become less comfortable with movements that require greater strength or mobility. The change can be so gradual that you barely notice it. At first, perhaps you use your hands occasionally. Then you choose a higher chair. Then you avoid sitting on the floor altogether. Eventually, the floor begins to feel like a place your body no longer knows how to navigate. The important point is not that everyone must repeatedly get down on the floor. Nor is floor rising some magical exercise that can stop aging. The real lesson is broader. Functional movements deserve practice. A movement that looks ordinary can reveal whether your muscles, joints, balance, and nervous system are cooperating effectively. And there is something else worth understanding. Difficulty getting off the floor does not automatically mean your muscles are aging too fast. Pain, joint limitations, balance problems, previous injuries, or other physical limitations can also make the movement difficult. So the goal should never be to force yourself through a movement that feels unsafe. Instead, think of floor movement as a question your body can answer. Can I control my body when the position becomes challenging? If the answer is yes, that ability is worth preserving. If the answer is becoming no, it may be a useful signal to work on the underlying qualities, strength, mobility, balance, and coordination with appropriate support. The floor is not important because it is the floor. It is important because getting down and back up asks your body to solve a complicated physical problem. And the more often you safely challenge your body with meaningful movements, the more opportunities you give it to remain capable, not merely strong in a laboratory test, but strong enough for real life. There is a simple idea in biology that explains a great deal about aging. Your body adapts to the demands you place on it. If you regularly challenge your muscles, they have a reason to remain capable. If you stop challenging them, your body gradually becomes better adapted to doing less. This does not mean that simply sitting on the floor will prevent muscle loss, and it certainly does not mean that aging can be stopped. The important lesson is that movement variety matters. Consider what happens when you spend most of your day in chairs. Your hips remain in a relatively limited position. Your knees repeatedly move through a familiar range. Your legs stand up from approximately the same height. Eventually, movements outside that familiar range can feel unusual or difficult. Now compare that with someone who occasionally kneels, squats, sits down low, rises from the floor, gets up from different surfaces, and moves their joints through comfortable ranges of motion. Their body receives a wider variety of physical instructions. The muscles are asked to produce force from different positions. The joints are asked to move through different ranges. The nervous system has to coordinate unfamiliar angles and shifts in body weight. balance has to adjust. These are all components of physical function. This is where the phrase, use it or lose it, becomes useful, but it needs to be understood correctly. You do not lose muscle simply because you stopped sitting on the floor. Muscle mass and strength are influenced by many factors, including physical activity, resistance training, nutrition, illness, hormones, and age. However, avoiding challenging movements can contribute to deconditioning because the body no longer receives the same stimulus. Imagine a person who always chooses the easiest possible version of every movement. They use the elevator instead of stairs. They sit in the highest chair. They avoid bending down. They pull themselves up with their arms whenever possible. They spend most of the day sitting. None of these choices is automatically bad. The problem appears when easy becomes the only option. Your muscles do not understand comfort. They respond to demand. When a muscle repeatedly needs to generate force, the body has an incentive to maintain the machinery required for that task. When physical demand decreases for long periods, the body can gradually become less capable of producing force. This is one reason resistance exercise is so valuable as we get older. It provides a deliberate signal. I still need this strength. But everyday movement can provide smaller signals too. Standing from a low surface, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, walking uphill, getting down to a garden, or rising from the floor can all require coordinated muscular effort. These movements are not replacements for a well-designed strength program, but they can help keep your body accustomed to doing useful things. There is another hidden benefit: confidence. When people stop performing a movement because it feels difficult, the movement can become even more unfamiliar. That unfamiliarity can create hesitation. Hesitation can lead to avoidance. Avoidance can lead to further deconditioning. A small physical limitation can therefore become a larger functional limitation if it is continuously reinforced. The solution is not to suddenly force yourself into deep squats or repeatedly drop to the floor. The smarter approach is gradual exposure. If getting up from the floor is difficult, begin with a higher surface. Use a sturdy support. Practice controlled sit-to-stand movements. Work on leg strength and balance. Progress slowly as your ability improves. The goal is not to prove that you are young. The goal is to teach your body that movement is still part of its job, because aging is not simply the passage of time. It is also the accumulation of what your body does or stops doing over those years. Here is something most people overlook. When you get off the floor, your muscles are not working alone. Your brain is involved. Your joints are involved. Your balance system is involved. Your sense of body position is involved. Even your confidence matters. That is what makes floor movement so interesting. It is not simply a strength exercise. It is a coordination problem. Imagine sitting on the floor with your legs positioned comfortably in front of you. To stand, you have to decide how to move your weight forward, where to place your feet, how much force to produce with your legs, and how to keep yourself balanced while your body changes position. Your nervous system is constantly making tiny adjustments. This is called motor control, the ability to organize muscles and joints so that your body produces a useful movement. And like strength, motor control can become less efficient when it is rarely challenged. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. You could read 10 books explaining balance, but eventually you have to get on the bicycle and practice. Your nervous system learns through experience. Movement works the same way. Every time you safely perform a physical task, your nervous system receives information about how that movement feels. Where is your body? How far can you reach? How much force is necessary? What happens if your weight shifts slightly? The floor movements can provide plenty of this information because they involve changing levels and shifting body weight. You might move from standing to kneeling, then from kneeling to sitting, then from sitting back to kneeling and standing again. Each transition requires control. This becomes especially relevant as people get older because maintaining physical independence requires more than having strong muscles. Suppose your legs are reasonably strong, but your balance is poor. You may still struggle with certain movements, or suppose your balance is good, but your hips lack sufficient mobility. Again, a movement may become difficult. Or perhaps you have enough strength and mobility but hesitate because you are afraid of losing your balance. That hesitation can change the way you move. So functional movement is really a conversation between several systems. Strength provides force, mobility provides available movement, balance helps keep your center of mass under control, coordination organizes everything. Confidence allows you to actually use those abilities. This is why a person can sometimes appear physically capable but still struggle with ordinary movements. Fitness is not one single quality. It is a collection of abilities that must cooperate, and floor movement can expose gaps between them. But there is an important warning here. Difficulty getting off the floor should not be treated as a diagnosis or as proof that someone is aging unusually quickly. Pain, arthritis, previous injuries, neurological conditions, dizziness, or other limitations can affect floor mobility. Anyone with significant difficulty or instability should choose appropriate exercises and seek professional guidance when necessary. The goal is not to force everyone onto the floor. The goal is to preserve the ability to change positions safely, because independence often depends on movements that never appear on a gym machine. Can you get up from a chair? Can you step over an obstacle? Can you bend down and recover? Can you kneel and stand? Can you regain your balance after a small unexpected shift? These are practical abilities, and practical abilities are what allow strength to become useful in everyday life. So when you think about maintaining muscle as you age, don't think only about how much weight you can lift. Think about how many different ways your body can move. A capable body is not merely powerful, it is adaptable, and every safe, controlled movement gives your brain and muscles another opportunity to practice working together. Modern life has quietly removed many of the movements our bodies once performed naturally. Think about your average day. You wake up and sit on the edge of the bed. You sit in a chair for breakfast. You sit in a car. You sit at a desk. You sit on a sofa. When something falls on the floor, perhaps someone else picks it up. When you need to reach another floor, you may take an elevator. None of these choices is inherently wrong. The problem is what happens when every movement becomes optimized for minimum effort. Your body is remarkably efficient. It constantly asks, in effect, how can I accomplish this task using the least energy that is useful for survival? But when your environment gives you almost no reason to use strength, mobility, balance, or coordination, those abilities may gradually become less practiced. This is where comfortable furniture can become an interesting example. A high, supportive chair makes standing easy. That is excellent when you are tired or recovering from an injury. But if every chair is high and every movement is assisted, your legs rarely have to produce much force from a deeper position. Now imagine the opposite. You occasionally sit down low. You squat to pick something up. You kneel in the garden. You get down to play with a child. You stand from different surfaces. You climb stairs. You carry objects. You walk over uneven ground. Your body encounters variety. Different muscles contribute at different angles. Your joints move through different ranges. Your balance system receives different challenges. Your brain has to coordinate movements that are not identical every time. This does not mean you need to deliberately make life difficult all day. It means that some challenge is useful. There is a psychological side to this as well. When a movement becomes unfamiliar, people often begin avoiding it. Suppose getting down to the floor feels slightly awkward. You stop doing it. A few months later, it feels even less natural. You avoid it again. Eventually, the floor can start to feel like an obstacle rather than a normal place to move. The same pattern can happen with stairs. Bending, kneeling, or rising from low surfaces. Avoidance can become a habit, and habits shape physical capacity. This is one reason maintaining strength and mobility is not simply about completing a formal workout for 30 minutes and then spending the remaining 15 hours sitting completely still. Structured exercise is extremely valuable, but everyday movement also matters. Your body spends most of its time outside the gym, so the question becomes, what are you asking it to do during those other hours? Can you stand up regularly? Can you walk? Can you carry something appropriate for your ability? Can you use stairs when safe? Can you move your joints through comfortable ranges? Can you occasionally practice getting down and up with proper support. These small decisions can keep movement present in your daily routine, but safety comes first. Someone with poor balance should not deliberately use unstable surfaces. Someone with significant joint pain should not force deep positions, and someone who cannot safely get off the floor should not practice alone without an appropriate progression. The objective is not to turn every daily activity into exercise. It is to prevent underuse from becoming your body's default setting. Comfort is valuable, rest is valuable, sitting is valuable, but your body also needs reasons to remain capable. So occasionally choose movement over convenience when it is safe to do so. Take the stairs instead of the elevator if appropriate. Stand up and walk around after prolonged sitting. Bend your knees rather than always reaching from the waist. Practice controlled strength movements. Change positions throughout the day. These are small signals, but they all communicate the same message. I still need my body to move. And that may be one of the most important messages you can continue giving yourself as the years go by. The goal is not to become an expert at getting up from the floor. The goal is much simpler: to preserve the strength, mobility, balance, and confidence that allow you to move through everyday life without unnecessary limitations. And the best way to do that is not to suddenly perform difficult movements every day. It is to start where you are and gradually make your body more capable. If getting down to the floor feels easy and controlled, you can occasionally practice the movement as part of your normal activity. But if it feels difficult, there are safer progressions. Start with something much higher. A sturdy chair can be an excellent starting point for practicing the basic pattern of standing up and sitting down. Instead of dropping quickly into the chair, control your descent. Then stand using your legs while keeping your movements steady. Why practice the descent? Because strength is not only about pushing yourself upward. Your muscles also need to control your body while you lower it. This type of controlled movement is an important part of everyday function. Once chair-based movements become comfortable, you might progress to a slightly lower surface, provided you can do so safely. You can also practice supported squats while holding a stable surface. Then there is the question of balance. Standing on one leg for a long time is not necessary for everyone, and unstable exercises can be risky. Instead, simple supported movements can challenge balance without requiring you to take unnecessary risks. Holding onto a sturdy countertop while shifting your weight from one leg to the other can help you become more comfortable controlling your body. Mobility matters too. If your ankles, hips, or knees cannot comfortably move through the positions required for floor transitions, forcing the movement is unlikely to solve the problem. Gentle mobility work appropriate to your ability may be more useful. And remember something important: pain is information. A little muscular effort or mild fatigue can be normal during exercise. Sharp pain, significant joint pain, dizziness, or unusual instability is a reason to stop and reassess. If you have a medical condition, recent injury, major balance problems, or substantial difficulty with everyday movement, professional guidance can help you choose appropriate exercises. The progression should feel almost boring. That is a good thing. You might begin with 5 controlled sit-to-stands. Then, over time, increase the number or make the movement slightly more challenging. You might practice stepping up onto a safe, low step. You might strengthen your hips and legs with appropriate resistance exercises. Eventually, if it is safe for you, you can practice portions of a floor transition using support. For example, you could move from standing to kneeling with a stable surface nearby, then reverse the movement. Or you might practice sitting on a firm, low surface and standing again. The important principle is progressive challenge. Your body needs a reason to adapt, but that reason does not have to be extreme. And there is a second principle: consistency beats intensity. Doing a manageable amount of movement regularly is generally more useful than attempting a heroic workout once every few weeks and then avoiding movement because you are exhausted or sore. Think of physical ability like a skill. You maintain it by practicing. Every controlled sit-to-stand teaches your legs something. Every safe step teaches your balance system something. Every appropriate strength exercise reminds your muscles that they still have work to do. And over time, these small practices can add up. The real victory is not being able to impress someone by standing from the floor without using your hands. The real victory is being able to live your life with fewer physical restrictions, getting out of a chair, climbing the stairs, picking something up, changing positions, getting down when necessary, standing back up. These ordinary abilities are easy to overlook until they become difficult, so don't wait for the floor to become a problem before you start caring about movement. Start with what you can do today, make it controlled, make it safe, make it consistent, then gradually ask your body for a little more, because the purpose of maintaining strength as you age is not to fight the calendar, it is to preserve your freedom to move through the world on your own terms.